You're locked in to Fran Harris's Women's Basketball TV.
Are you insane? Some of y'all are just haters.
With WNBA champion, NCAA champion, sports announcer, and entrepreneur, Fran Harris.
Asia Wilson is still the best basketball player in the WNBA.
Serving up the best in women's hoops news and tea.
I'm not calling Angel Reese Bayou Barbie anymore. She is rebounding Barbie. Come on, girl.
No cap.
Some of y'all are losing your minds right now because some of your favorite players are on hardship contracts. The teams have to let them go per the WNBA rule. Come on, y'all.
So buckle up, Buttercup. Here's the show.
All right, let's take a look at the MVP race. This is the 2024 conversation that people are having. If you saw my game Friday and the game before that, which is probably a week before that, with the Dallas Wings, and you saw me talk about the 5 people that I believe are the biggest contenders, the strongest contenders for MVP this season. Before we get to those 5, and of course I'm always going to be interested in what your take is and why, but before we get to those, let's talk about my attributes, the qualities, the check boxes that they need to check to even be considered an MVP. The first one is individual performance, right? Individual performance, statistical dominance. The player who wins MVP is often a statistical leader. Points, assists, rebounds, steals, blocks, etc., etc. And here's the thing, they are dominant regardless of who they are playing. They are dominant regardless of who they are playing. They don't just play well when they're playing the bad teams. They don't just dominate when they're playing the bad teams. They dominate no matter who they are playing. Statistically dominating no matter who they're playing. All right, let's talk about efficiency. These people are usually shoot really good percentages. They have low turnover rates, the ability to make the right play at crucial moments. So not only are they efficient, but they're also big time ballers. They play their best in the biggest game. Now, I know some of y'all love who y'all love, and you love them even on off nights, but you got to keep it a buck and you got to keep it honest when you're looking at the MVP race. Has your MVP candidate shown up big in the biggest moments? See, for me, it's not enough for them just to be statistically dominant and to average, 20 this and 10 that. That's not enough. Have they also played well when their team was on the chopping block? Have they also played well when nobody on their team is playing well? And of course, we know every player is going to have a bad performance every now and again. But these MVP folks are built differently. They are built very differently. They have, less than 10% bad games. 90% of the time, they're the same dominant player. MVP, last thing on the individual performance, usually are very versatile. They usually play more than one position. And even if they are like a true center, they also have forward type skills. They can pull out and shoot the 3, right? They contribute in multifacets of the game, including scoring, defense, playmaking. So, does your MVP put in big time individual performances? Now, let's talk about intangibles before I get to the impact on team success, because that's my big one. Intangibles. Clutch performers. Kind of something I said in the first one. Clutch performers. They turn it up when the pressure is on. They do not choke. They just don't. In close games, critical moments, game-defining minutes, MVP candidates perform. They make the right play at the right time. Influence on the game. How does your MVP player, change the game's dynamics when she is in the game? Right? Do people change their scout for your MVP candidate? Give you an example. Do they double team them? Do they triple team them? Do they foul them? Your MVP candidate must change the strategy of the teams that they play. Said another way, if you really got an MVP candidate on your ballot, the person you're thinking of should be MVP. They dominate the scouting report. Everybody talks about, hey, we got to stop Asia for doing this. We got to make sure Clark doesn't do this. We got to make sure this person. That's how dominant MVPs are. Those intangibles, critical intangibles, they influence the game. I also believe that an MVP's impact goes beyond the court. What impact are they having on the game? Are girls paying attention? Are boys paying attention? Is the media paying attention? Is everybody paying attention? When they play, are people watching? When they speak, are people repeating? Yes, there is the impact on the court, but there's also the impact off the court. Let's talk about the third attribute. So that was intangible. Impact on team success. And we are going to disagree and agree on this. Impact on team success. Can you have an MVP from a losing team? Like bottom of the barrel. Raise your hands right now if you think you can vote. You can vote in an MVP whose team went 8-29 or 8-34 or whatever it ends up being. Can the best player on that team, whoever you're thinking, can they actually be named the MVP? I say no. Absolutely not. I don't care if they are the best player in the league. Best individual talent in the league. If their team sucks, they are not my MVP. They're not. MVPs typically bring with them winning. That's what makes you valuable, is your impact on your team's success. Winning record. They contribute directly to their team's success. Next thing, leadership. MVPs typically biggest microphone on the team. That's difficult sometimes when you got outstanding rookie players. But leadership is a very big part of becoming an MVP. Consistency. I talked about this in the first attribute. Maintaining a high level of performance throughout the season is crucial. You are not going to win MVP if you have a mid-season slump. You're just not. You're not going to get MVP if you have a period of times of games where 7 games straight you suck. Not going to happen. So impact on team success is very, very important. And then there is the final attribute, which is narrative and the media influence. This is going to be tough for some folks because we know we've seen seasons in college, in the WNBA, where the media has jumped on the coat of a player and all of a sudden that player's storyline starts to turn towards MVP. Because the media, and I mean the traditional media and I mean social media, is talking about this player. It is possible that a player will become MVP simply based on how popular they are. Because the old adage, like if people are talking about you, you must be important. There is that train of thought. If people are talking about you, you must be important. If you've got 16 million followers, you must be important. Yeah. Media can influence who becomes MVP. And we do know that there is a vote. There is the vote of popular opinion from y'all. And there is the vote of media folks whose ballots actually decide who is going to be WNBA MVP. So now I will jump into my 5 and why. My 5 candidates for MVP are A'ja Wilson. Let's start at the top. Has been the most dominant player in the WNBA this season again. Yes, I said again. A'ja Wilson should be MVP. if we're going on my criteria, which I just shared with y'all, individual performance, intangibles, impact on team success, and the narrative, A'ja Wilson is definitely MVP. She has been the most consistent, the most dominant player in our game. Not even up for debate. Now, when I get to these other four, there are some debates. I'm open to debates on the next one. Stewie. Breanna Stewart, the New York Liberty. By the way, A'ja Wilson, if you're new here, plays for the Las Vegas Aces. Breanna Stewart for the New York Liberty has had a great season. Really great season. In fact, it was very neck and neck between A'ja and Stewie again for me. Right before the Olympic break. Since the Olympic break, A'ja has taken off. Now, what I love about Stewie is her versatility. She's just a quiet assassin. She just goes about her business. She can shoot the outside shot. She got a mid-range. She's a tremendous shot blocker. You probably have heard me say those same things about A'ja Wilson. Very different players, very similar output for their teams. Stewie has not been as dominant this season for me as she was last year when she won MVP. I actually believe A'ja Wilson was last year's MVP if you're counting. But Stewie did have an MVP-like season last year. Since the break, I'm not feeling Stewie as dominant. A'ja has taken it to another level. Napheesa Collier just did her game. I just called her game, last Friday with the Dallas Wings. Napheesa Collier is crazy good. Crazy good. Probably the most versatile of the three that I've talked about so far. A'ja, Breanna, Napheesa, her skill set, her ball handling as, what most would consider a post player. She's not a post player. She's just tall and lanky. Her outside shot, her defense, her just comportment on the court, just who she is on the court, feels like an MVP type player. And she's got a crazy toolkit. Crazy toolkit. Does she fit all of the parameters that I mentioned? She does. But I don't think Fee has been as dominant. Again, everything is going to be compared to who I believe is a runaway candidate, which is A'ja Wilson. Fee has not been as dominant as A'ja Wilson. And maybe it's the way Fee plays, right? You guys got to think about this. Sometimes it's the way people get it done that causes people to think that they are an MVP or they're not. And Fee's game has spoken for itself this season. But it's not allowed. It's not like a big roar. It's not like a big roar, even though it's clearly a dominant performance on the stat sheet. And I also think the part of what Fee is suffering from is being on a team like Minnesota, who candidly just gets it done. It's not glamorous. It's not always pretty, but it is so good. They are so good. Sometimes your team will suffer because it's not a lot of glitz and glamour. It doesn't have it's not a big, media people aren't clamoring to cover the Minnesota Lynx. Their coach is controversial for some of y'all. So I think Fee's inability to win MVP also has a lot to do with the fact that she plays in Minnesota. Next, I'm going to go to Thomas. Alyssa Thomas, y'all's favorite niece. Alyssa Thomas is someone I would definitely want on my team, but I would be fighting Alyssa Thomas in the game all game long. She does the stuff that some people call dirty. Some people call it dirty. Some people call it all kinds of names. She plays hard. She's extremely consistent. She fills up, she stuffs the stat sheet with stuff that doesn't get a whole lot of praise. Deflections, loose balls, cheap shots, whatever you want to say. Alyssa Thomas is a blue collar player. And I think her performance has not been as dominant as last season when she was also up for MVP, but I do believe her importance to her team cannot be overstated. And then finally, the only rookie in my top 5 candidates for MVP, Caitlin Clark. Someone mentioned, one of my producers mentioned, do you notice everybody says Caitlin Clark like it's one word? That's what people say. My teammates used to call me Fran Harris. Fran Harris, what's up, Fran Harris? Caitlin Clark. Yep, Caitlin Clark. That's what you know her. You don't call her Caitlin. You don't call her Clark. You call her Caitlin Clark. She is the only rookie in my MVP conversation. And when I look at my criteria, my check card, my little report card of what an MVP is, individual performances, check. Rough start. Let's keep it a buck. Rough start. But individual performances, we've seen some great ones from Caitlin this season. Impact on team success. Listen, at the beginning of the season, the Indiana Fever looked raggedy. Not gonna lie. They all looked kind of raggedy. And they don't look raggedy now. They look smooth. They look like they're about to make a run. And a lot of that has to do with how they have gelled, how they have come together, figured out some things, but most importantly, y'all, gotten some reps. They've gotten some reps, some repetition with one another. That's what you're seeing. It wasn't bad coaching at the beginning. It wasn't bad players. It was a group of players who were not accustomed to playing with one another. The Olympic break was the most important thing that could have happened to the Indiana Fever. The most important thing. By the way, no, Caitlin Clark should not have been on the Olympic team. P.S. Should not have. She needed this break. Her team needed this break. They needed the time to play together. Look how they're playing. And Caitlin Clark's game has ascended since the break. Caitlin Clark is playing a lot better. One of the things I complained about Caitlin Clark, and one of the things that, by the way, Caitlin Clark admitted to, was the fact that she didn't have a great mid-range game. Like literally, go look at some tape. Caitlin Clark, the first 10 games, maybe took 2 mid-range shots. She couldn't even penetrate, pull up for an 8-foot shot. She did not have the skill to do it. Again, go listen to Caitlin. Go watch tape, and you will see that Caitlin's game was either a pass, a penetration in the pass, or a shot, a 3-point shot. There were not many long twos, and there were certainly no mid-range shots. She had no midi game whatsoever. Come back after the Olympic break, she's got a midi, she got a long two, she's taking folks to the hole. What? Impact on team success? If that was going to be an award, that would be Caitlin Clark's award. Absolute impact. Absolute impact. Her commitment to get in that gap during the Olympic break and work on some stuff she needed to work on has helped her team, has elevated her team to the next level. Now you say, well, what about Kelsey Mitchell, and what about Nalissa, and what about Lexi? What about, yeah, all those people are great. But Caitlin has the ball in her hand more than anybody. So what she is able to create with the ball in her hands the majority of the time is going to be very important. And if what she's doing, if she's creating and mixing those ingredients together, if she's gotten better at certain skills, her team is going to be better by the sheer virtue of her getting better. So she got better. They started catching the ball. By the way, if you listen to my channel, if you're faithful, my very early videos about the Indiana Fever were about both of Caitlin and her teammates. Caitlin was overpassing, making bad passes. Her teammates weren't catching the damn ball. Like, it was them. It wasn't one or the other. It was both of them. That's how it is on the team. So, the Indiana Fever have some great pieces. Think about it. They have Rookie of the Year from last year with Aaliyah Boston. Kelsey Mitchell, the most underestimated shooter in the WNBA. Nalissa Smith, Lexell, I think I'm putting her, that's the one I'm talking about, and Caitlin Clark. Like, that starting five is tough. Tough. So has Caitlin Clark had tremendous impact on her team's success? 100%. She's got some of the intangibles. Clutch performance, extremely clutch. Got the narrative and media influence. We know that. She came into the league with that. And if it were not for A'ja Wilson, candidly, and I'm voting as a media vote, if it were not for A'ja Wilson's dominant performances this season, Caitlin Clark might get my vote. She might get my vote. But because her performances early in the season were kind of like, that would probably be the reason she would not get my vote. Because I got to put both halves together. I got to do the before Olympics and after Olympics. See, we only remember what is nearest to our memory, right? So the fact that she's playing extremely well, they've reeled off like 6 in a row. That's what we remember. We don't remember how bad Indiana looked. Well, most of us do. How bad Indiana looked early in the season. So in fairness to the other candidates, even though I would like to probably go, okay, Caitlin, I see you making the case. The people who've had the most consistent runs are going to be Nafisa, after A'ja, of course. Nafisa Collier. That would be my vote. But it would be hard, based on how they're playing now. It would be hard not to award the other 3. So anyway, that's my opinion on the 5. A'ja Wilson-Stewie, Nafisa Collier, Caitlin Clark, and Alyssa Thomas. What are your thoughts? And who should get MVP and why? We'll see you in the next one.
That's all for now. Before you bounce, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and check out the merch.